Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a breaking news update, kind of fallout from the breaking news. Last night I was online just about to do my frontline update when the events took place and they started hitting the information spaces. I reported on it straight away and now we've had a little bit of time to work out what's taken place. So we're going to go through what happened, what we know, what some of the reaction has been in these information spaces, how it is being, I think, capitalized upon or used by certain elements, including in Russia, very interestingly, very sadly, and then what happens from now on. Okay, let's go to the events themselves. So if you remember, Trump was giving or if you don't know, Trump was giving a rally in Pennsylvania when this happened.
We see something that said, take a look at what happened. Oh.
So the shots came, as we're looking, I think, from the left of the screen. And therefore, whoever was hit, other than Trump, was probably to your right of the screen. There was one dead, one, maybe one or two injured. Trump himself, obviously, was injured. He was bundled to the floor, and then eventually they announced that the shooter was down, so on and so forth. That was the kind of main event there. As he got up, there were these fairly incredible pictures of him sort of punching the air and calling on people to fight, which we'll discuss a little bit, see if there's more coming from here. You can see he's got blood on his face. And he says, one more moment, fight, fight, fight. And then calls of USA, USA, etc., etc. Now, I wouldn't fault him for reacting in that defiant manner. It must be incredibly shocking to go through something like that. But of course, that in itself could be an element of inciting a reaction to this that might be counterproductive. So first and foremost, this is a terrible incident. You absolutely do not want a situation where people are resorting to such violence to silence someone in the political realm. Now, we don't know why this has happened yet. We don't know enough about the shooter yet. There have been claims that this was a staged event. I'm in no doubt that this is not a staged event. That you would give the go-ahead for someone to shoot at you from 150 meters and it grazes your ear, like with thinking of the wind temperature, the wind and the distance. And apparently he was firing with an assault rifle, not a sniper rifle. I don't know 100% about that, but the claim is it's an assault rifle. Then you're not going to be planning that in, because one slight mistake and that's an inch to the right and you are dead. So there's absolutely no way that this is a staged event. Yeah, there might be some incongruities, but that's the case for the JFK shooting, for the, I don't know, for whatever do you want to apply conspiracy theories to. I would just say that there is zero nothing is zero probability in the realm of what is conceptually possible, but there is a negligible probability that this is some kind of staged event. So this is someone shooting at Donald Trump and trying to kill him, it appears. Some claims that actually the bullet hit the teleprompter and the shards went off and hit his ear. I'm not sure that's true either. My read on it is that this was an assassination attempt. Now, you then have Trump reacting like this and people saying that's just going to be one of the most iconic photos going forward. I mean, goodness me. Like, if you wanted this to be a positive PR event in the end, then that's exactly what this has become for the Republicans and for Trump. There's no doubt about that. But we'll come on to that kind of analysis in a while. Let's just keep to what actually happened. And this is one of the most revealing, fascinating interview with someone who was outside the security perimeter, but was right next to the shooter. And this is it Mark Modell interviewing BBC reporter interviewing this guy who we'll play some of it here.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling police and the Secret Service.
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see.
So you could build up some conspiracy theory that the Secret Service and police were all in or whatever. No, absolutely. The reality is likely to be the guy was behind a roof there, that these guys are pointing, there's a guy up there, we've seen him crawl up there, and the police are down below, or the Secret Service are above but can't, or over to the side but can't quite see him. Anyway, the guy then gets off some shots, and then they react, and then they basically kill the guy. So that's why you hear shots initially, and then straight away these other shots, because I was trying to work out how they must have known where he was in order to have killed him straight away. So I was thinking, well, he must be in the audience. Well, it turns out no, he was out on this building outside the perimeter, shoots at Trump. These guys have been trying to indicate that he's there. The police, and maybe had it been another 20 seconds, but the guy hadn't shot in that time, and the Secret Service would have been on him, and they wouldn't have let off a shot at all. But anyway, he was killed. Like, the guy says they blew his head off. And Mark Modell's like, watch out for who's listening to this. He's like, yeah, they blew his head off. So they took out the guy on top of the roof, and that's the end of that. So I'm not going to play you any more of that, but it is a fascinating interview. That's kind of what happened. And of course, then we see straight away people talking about, if you think the shooting at Trump rally was an assassination attempt, you're in a cult. This is the most staged thing I've seen in a long time. He knows he's going to lose the election, so he fakes the shit out and shouts a word at the crowd to fight. You know what's next. Now, I don't agree with that. So that's one side of the aisle might be saying that, and then you get other people just saying, I just landed and missed an assassination attempt. Holy crap, what a badass reaction from Trump. This election is over. He's the next president. The Dems should give up. They can't beat him now. So you get these kind of like competing narratives as to either what happened or how to interpret this going forward. Let's just make sure we have a good handle on what happened. This is a rundown of the events. Trump was speaking at a rally in Pennsylvania. Loud noises were heard in the crowd around 6:13. Trump appeared to have been struck by something in the right of his ear as he was speaking. The video showed him quickly clutching his ear and then ducking down to the ground as security agents and others leaped to his aid. One spectator was killed and at least 2 were injured. Trump stood up with blood on the side of his face and appeared to be saying fight, fight while pumping his fist. The rally location is now an active crime scene. The FBI has taken over the investigation. Trump's team, and the Secret Service confirmed that he was fine and is being checked at a local medical facility. Trump later posted a statement on Truth Social saying he was hit by a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. The Butler County District Attorney confirmed that the suspected shooter and one rally attendee were dead. One person at the rally was in serious condition. The Secret Service later said 2 people were critically injured. The shooting is being investigated as an attempted assassination. The FBI later named Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20, of Bethel Park, PA, as the subject involved in the shooting. He is registered on voter records as a Republican, but also donated $15 to a liberal voter group. The Secret Service shared more details on the shooter's position and confirmed that the shooter was killed by the Secret Service. ABC News reported law enforcement officials say the suspect was perched on a rooftop and used an AR-style rifle. So the idea is that this is not a sniper rifle. There's no way this could be staged. You wouldn't be Trump and then signing up to that. No one would be like, oh yeah, let's have some rando shoot at me with an AR-15. And we're going to stage it so that then that guy gets his head blown off. Yeah, not sure that's ever going to happen. And yeah, any slight issue there, I'm dead. You know, if I move my head this way or whatever, then, you know, I've got a bullet through my head. It's never staged. Don't fall into the trap of thinking it is staged, because it fits a couple of elements of the data, and it fits in with your narrative. Maybe you are really anti-Trump and you don't want this to be some like complete wingnut rando doing this. You want it to come back on, say, the Republicans as an example. So just you know, chill, check out the data, check your biases, so on and so forth. Like, I am not a Trump fan in any way, shape or form, but in my eyes, there's no way this is staged. The Republican-controlled House of Representatives summoned the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, to testify at an oversight committee hearing scheduled for the 22nd of July. I mean, goodness me, already fallout with regards to the Secret Service there. The President, Joe Biden, said, quote, "Everybody must condemn political violence," in a speech shortly after the shooting. So I heard that last night. Pretty kind of standard speech as you'd expect it to be. You know, it's going to be a bit of shock. It was somewhat unscripted. White House later said the President and Trump had spoken. Biden is traveling back to the White House. Trump is in New Jersey. So that's what happened. Lots of things coming out, particularly from other people around, other politicians around the world, other national leaders who are coming out very much in support of Trump as another leader who's had an assassination attempt. Certain leaders have really politically capitalized. 2 of them, Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, who is your Trump 2.0, is going hard on this being like the violent left and etc., and really politically capitalizing on that. The other is Robert Fitzo, who's just had an assassination himself, but also quite politicizing it in a way that's useful for him. Both of those leaders there, or not, Geert Wilders is the leader of the PVV, not the actual prime minister. But yeah, it is... So I guess predictable that certain people will be trying to capitalize on this, and I think this is happening an awful lot, as you've already seen with some of the statements that have come out straight away. So there's going to be questions about how well he's protected, all that kind of stuff. Then you've got all of these people, as mentioned, coming out from every single country talking about this and giving their, not condolences, but support for Trump, etc. All we know about the shooter so far, as mentioned, he's a 20-year-old called Thomas Matthew Crooks. He's the suspect. State voter records show that Crooks was a registered Republican, according to Reuters. And indeed, here is the evidence of that. So an active Republican Party affiliation, but I don't think that tells you too much. When Crooks was 17, he made a $15 donation to Act Blue, a political action committee that raises money for the left-leaning and Democratic politicians. Reuters wrote, citing a 2021 Federal Election Commission filing. The donation was earmarked for the Progressive Turnout Project. Crooks graduated in 2022 from Bethel Park High School and received a $500 STAR award from the National Math and Science Initiative, according to the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. So not too much known about him at the moment. he's a registered Republican, but possibly active Democrat, or at least has those political leanings, but doesn't look like there's any information to suggest he was, I guess, motivated enough, the sort of person that would, just looking at these other data points, do something like he's done. So there's obviously a lot more information to come out on this guy. But I guess you would have had this situation where Republicans would be expecting this guy to be like Antifa, and some Democrats were hoping this guy would be like a full-on Republican, and it's all staged. And of course, it might be neither of those things. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, there are all sorts of claims coming out about him at the moment, and a whole load of them are fake, and a load have been spread that are fake. So someone came out and pretended they were the guy, and then took the claims down, I think, because they then spread like wildfire, and it wasn't him. Some other claims about someone else who I think end up being a Spanish football fan or Italian football fan or something, and his picture was spread around. So there's so much misinformation and also a lot of disinformation as well. So let's start with connections to Ukraine, because guess what? Russians straight away have got onto this kind of claim. Guess who the Russians accused of trying to kill Trump? And of course, it's going to be the Ukrainians. They are already suspect number one in the eyes of many Russians. Indeed, we have I've got some more. We have some claims that it was the Azov battalion being trained for that. I've just got to find where that is. Is it all the way over here? Yeah, I had that out of position. So here we have Dunning-Kruger effect at its finest. Ilya Ponomarenko says, incompetent, indoctrinated, and nevertheless monstrously overconfident about things he or she has no idea about. So this is someone saying that shot 150 yards is not an easy shot. This man was trained, probably Azov. So the idea is that, the Ukrainians are behind it. You've got the Russians capitalizing on this big time from a state point of view. So here we have RIA Novosti, who they are a Russian media outlet, saying this is how the famous American blogger Jackson Hinkle, blah, blah, blah. So they're talking about their go-to information guy is Jackson Hinkle, who is the biggest Russian shill this side of St. Petersburg. And Jackson Hinkle said, if you try to stop World War III, they will try to kill you. Who is they? Clearly going to be those horrible liberals. And he has a picture of Robert Fico and Trump punching the air. Russian state propaganda, RIA Novosti, and people like Jackson Hinkle go hand in hand, quoting him as if his opinion matters, says Noel reports. Well, I can imagine, since he is a notorious fake news spreader, he perfectly fits Russian standards. And then you have the Russian MFA, so Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman Maria Zakharova saying, quote, the US should have invested more money in its internal security instead of funding terrorists like from Kiev. So the idea is that this is a fault of the US for funding the Zelensky regime rather than spending money internally on its own security or whatnot. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous, but this will find purchase amongst some on the right, no doubt, in the US. Maria Zakharova says, Ward translated, accuses America of paying for alleged Putin's assassination attempts. Like the rest of the Kremlin regime, she's incapable of any compassion or at least tact when it comes to such events as the attempted murder of Trump. In any situation, it must be all about them and only them. And actually what you're seeing here is this generally across a political spectrum, people trying to capitalize on this, rather than this being a terrible event. And, let me be very, very clear that this is terrible. As in, prima facie, this event, the assassination attempt of a former president and one of the men running for the next president of the US to try and kill them, is bad. Like, it's just simply bad. Shouldn't happen. Political violence is bad. what happens as a result, I think, is going to be fascinating and not in a good way. I mean, to continue the Russian theme here, photos have appeared online in Russia supposedly vowing revenge on Ukraine for the assassination attempt on Trump. The first shells, so we got shells and missiles written on them. The first shell says, Hochels, which is a derogatory term for Ukrainians, you will answer for Trump. There you go. If you're asking WTF, says Tim White, and why would Russia write for Trump on shells to fire at Ukraine today? Sergei Tsekov, a traitor from occupied Crimea, called for the US to investigate Ukrainian special services for an assassination attempt on Trump. So they are connecting it directly to the Ukrainians, the Russians, and are, you know where their sentiments lie, right? Okay, Politico quotes, he just won the election. So Hill Republicans predict Trump rally shooting will ease the path to the White House. My initial reaction is to this. So aside from how terrible it is from a individual moral and political moral stance in an assassination attempt, moving on to, okay, what happens now? This is terrible from a political point of view, because you are going to get people biased towards, you'll get polarization, further polarization, and you will get a bias towards a position that isn't warranted by policy, right? So this isn't going to become about which person is best going to introduce policies that will be for the benefit of the average American person. This just becomes about, it's an assassination attempt. We're going to vote for the guy who's been attempted to be killed because we think the left were trying to silence Trump and trying to silence us, type thing. And so you would get people voting on that basis. The question is, what happens to the people in the middle? So, okay, you're going to get a very vocal, extreme response from people on the right who already would have been voting Trump. How does this affect the swing voter? How does this affect someone who was teetering? And my proposition is that someone who was teetering towards possibly voting Trump, but is slightly worried about something like Project 2025, they're going to vote for Trump now, I think, or they're more likely to vote for Trump. So I think it will definitely have an effect. We've already seen the rhetoric coming out from many on the right who are just saying that this is an attempt on Trump from the left, and this is as a result of Biden's rhetoric. I got involved in a discussion with someone who Trentelenko refers to an awful lot that I just thought it was not cool. And so here we go. So this is guy John Conrad V. I think he says a lot to do with shipping and stuff. He's pro-Ukrainian, but very anti-Biden. And he said, it's over for Biden. Repeatedly calling Trump a dictator and comparing him to Hitler caused this. Calling too many moderate right Republicans far-right racists caused this. Someone believed the lies, and now the left is going to lose big. Hostile words have consequences. And I'm like, no, this is just capitalization. I would stand by the fact that Trump is fascistic. I've written articles on how in the 2016 to 2010 year, he did things that were overtly fascistic that fit in line with things like Jason Stanley's How Fascism Works, right? I think that is what he's like. And I think to liken him to fascist people like, say, Hitler, or calling him a dictator, I think he's a dictator wannabe. I think he wants to be a dictator. And I don't think that gives anyone permission to go and shoot him. And I think this is just whipping up a storm. And it's also forgetting the rhetoric of Trump. So anyway, this kind of conversation went... Someone else said, I fully disagree with your assessment in the situation, John. John said, please explain. Someone else says, for a start, feel free to point out where Biden's compared Trump to Hitler. If you like, it's like Trump's Truth Social posts where he said many much more inflammatory things. And I said, look, agreed. Trump fans are milking this without recognizing the terrible things Trump has himself repeatedly said. And John said to me, milking, the man got shot in the head. I said, it's 100% terrible from all sorts of different angles. I'm not denying this is terrible. But blaming Biden for this is pretty opportunistic capitalization, especially given the demonstrably worse rhetoric that has come from Trump over the years. And then he randomly said, so 2 wrongs make a right. I don't really get that. So not at all. This is terrible. Since there's not yet any clarity on who did this and why, blaming Biden overtly for this seems disingenuous and particularly partisan. And so, you know, liking someone to a fascist is not the same as inciting violence upon them. Like, for example, erecting some gallows at an insurrection event and calling for the vice president to be hung. So although, like, you know, Trump never said hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. If you're like talking about rhetoric and dangerous rhetoric, like, and then you're forgetting January the 6th and gallows, actual gallows being erected with a noose and chanting hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence. Don't come to me and say the terrible rhetoric of the left here. Don't come to me and say the Democrats deserve, you know, the Democrats caused this because X, Y, and Z, and then forget about the heinous stuff that's been said previously. No doubt by both sides, but to just take one side and say, look, that's terrible, and to forget everything else that's been said on your own side, I think is like rank opportunism, and it is not useful at all. It's not helpful at all to try and just dampen things down. You know, I don't think Biden, like, on the one hand, he's some doddery old fool that's completely, he's got, say, dementia and amnesia, and he's feeble-minded, etc., etc. And on the other hand, he's inciting violence against Trump and yeah, etc., etc. So, you know, let's be careful. And it's not helped when the platform that is Twitter helps to amplify these very divisive viewpoints. So Musk bought a platform that was starting to put checks on lies like this. He quickly undid that and developed a system that would incentivize it instead, paying people to go viral. And today, he endorsed Trump after it became public he had already donated to him. So Peke Kaluniemi points out that, as we expected, conspiracy theories around the shooting are popping up like mushrooms, as this opaque moment is the best time to get engagement and make money. If you aren't already, I suggest that you follow Cheyenne86 to stay updated on the latest and most ridiculous BS. So this is a time where people are incentivized to throw out really controversial claims that get traction because they engage and enrage, and from that you get extra engagement, and therefore you get money if you're monetized on Twitter. And that is not good. Musk has got rid of many of the moderating mechanisms for stopping things like this from happening and from stopping rank disinformation. Now, here's a guy. This is not a video of the shooter at Trump's Pennsylvania rally. This is the same Twitter user who pretended to be the shooter in an odd trolling attempt. He posted this video an hour ago and quickly deleted it. He's now being shared as if it's a message by the real shooter. So this guy now is on mainstream media being claimed, like I saw, was it Finnish media have just put up that that's him. And it's like, come on, guys, check what you're doing here. OSINT Defender, Laura Loomer, and some other major accounts are falsely claiming that this photo of the shooter at Trump's Pennsylvania rally. This is a picture of a Twitter user who posted it himself in a trolling attempt a couple of hours ago, and he's very much alive. You've got then a Twitter Spaces with all these people talking, and it's entitled "Jews Try to Assassinate Trump." So straight away you've got that kind of thought process taking place, and this is an opportunity to whip up a storm. Major blue tick accounts are falsely claiming that Antifa extremist Mark Violets was the shooter at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania today, who earlier revealed his plan on a YouTube video. The video shows an Italian football fan, Marco Violi, who has nothing to do with the shooting. And so, you know, on and on it goes. Elon Musk himself said in response to this video of Trump saying fight, fight, he says, I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery. So this is an opportunity. Sean Pinner, who I interviewed, sorry, words are difficult today, saying that's pathetic. This is the opportunity to basically politicize this overtly. So Elon Musk, with 190 million followers, takes this video and says, I fully endorse Trump, right? And this then, it is just hugely political, not in and of itself as someone trying to take out the person running for president, but all of the fallout afterwards. And Musk is definitely a part of that. He said, last time America had a candidate this tough was Theodore Roosevelt. We don't deserve this warrior, says Catturd, who is sounds ridiculous, but that's a huge, actually anti-Ukraine, pro right wing, super right, very much in the Elon Musk sphere. They are co-conspirators, I think, in a lot of things. Catturd, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump is tougher than Theodore Roosevelt, so on and so forth. He's the GOAT, greatest of all time, absolutely. So this is a real opportunity for people, and you can imagine that, right? It was obviously going to happen if you have a candidate who is running for president, who is there's an assassination attempt and they survive. Then they are just going to get more popular. This will energize their base more than it already was energized. And this is only going to work well, I think, for the Republicans. So there will be some huge political ramifications to this. Okay, Pekka Kaliuniemi says, a gentle reminder that Ian has never set foot on US soil. Who's he referring to? Well, Ian Mars Chung is another of Elon Musk's favourites. He is, I think, Malaysian super uber right-wing provocateur. He says, I'm 1,000,000% behind Trump now. We are at war. We is really important, because the we is not the American right, because he's not a member of the American right, but he is by extension that, because he actually platforms it and amplifies it hugely. This was the first shot, implying that there will be another shot. It could be talking metaphorically, or he could be just building up this sense of tension that could result in political violence. And so I think by Trump shouting, fight, 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 as strong as that seems and as defiant as that seems, it could also be counterproductive in actually whipping up his political base to fight here, to physically, to turn this into something that might approach a civil war, right? The film, the movie that came out recently in the cinema by what's his name, Alex Garland. That's it. So the Alex Garland film, Civil War. So we are possibly in the very early stages of that. Now, I don't want to whip up this kind of sentiment myself, but just, let's be warned, let's try and temper rhetoric to a point that it means that we can have sensible discourse without going down these kind of dangerous routes. Elon Musk replies to Ian Miles Chung, who says to Musk, please triple your protection. If they can come for Trump, they will also come for you. It's just adding this sense. He doesn't need to say that. Elon Musk knows what he's doing. Dangerous times ahead, says Musk. 2 people, separate occasions, have already tried to kill me in the last 8 months. They were arrested with guns about 20 minutes drive from Tesla HQ in Texas. So there is this sense of a growing tension, of heightened rhetoric. Edward Lucier says, almost any criticism of Trump is already being spun by MAGA as an incitement to assassinate him. This is an Orwellian attempt to silence what remains of the effort to stop him from regaining power. And this is a really interesting point, and something I made last night. What did I say? On Facebook last night, before I went to bed, I just made some pretty basic claims about what I thought was the situation, with four points. And I said, look, the assassination attempt on Trump at the Pennsylvania rally. 1, attempting to murder a politician is a terrible act and a sad indictment of the US political landscape. 2, Trump pumping the air and shouting fight in defiance is understandable, but could also herald in some seriously fractious and violent times. 3, Trump's polling figures will absolutely bounce. To survive such an attempt will galvanize support for him, and this is bad news for Biden. And 4, this will also make it harder to criticize Trump, at least in the short term. This is very, very bad from every single angle you can imagine. Right. And this is that. My last point is what Edward Luce is saying here, that actually it's going to be very difficult to criticize Trump for certainly in the short term. I don't know how long for, because it's difficult to criticize someone who's just had an assassination attempt on them, even though there are genuine reasons to criticize Trump for everything he's been saying for the last 8 years, but for the last few months in this in his candidacy. So this then plays into the hands of the Republicans. Democrats have already pulled campaigning adverts, as you would expect. I just think this is politically really advantageous for the Republicans. And that's not that there's any agency behind that. It's just the way these pieces fall. James Croft, who I've interviewed myself, is a good man, says, I've been a consistent opponent of dehumanizing rhetoric from anyone in politics. I've always said it comes from all sides. But to see Republicans now decrying violent political rhetoric and blaming Democrats for the state of the discourse is galling. It's hypocritical. The truth is conservatives have been largely responsible for the collapse of civil discourse in America, including Trump himself. I saw over 15 years, so James Croft has moved back to the UK now, but he was in the US for 15 years working. I saw over 15 years how conservatives poisoned politics, incited increasingly violent rhetoric and imagery, weaponizing anger to gain and keep power. For the same people to now blame Democrats for the violence in our political culture is breathtakingly hypocritical. We all have a responsibility to create a healthy politics, but you don't get to poison the well and then complain when you get sick from drinking the water. I love that last statement. I mean, James has been on the end of from being a secular gay man, he was like on the end of all. He's been on the end of all sorts, right? But he's on the point here. You don't get to poison the well and then complain when you get sick from drinking the water. Like, to say that the rhetoric has been overtly leftist violent rhetoric is just to completely bastardize reality. And to cherry pick the data you want to support your own view that there will be a justified, wrath of the right here, and that this was caused by such terrible leftist rhetoric. Mesa Gifford, interesting, he's fought in Ukraine and is in fact, did he run for Conservative in the last election? He's a Conservative, he's a Conservative Party member. So he's not a leftist. The attempt on Donald Trump is a terrible crime. Violence should never be a part of politics. But let's be in no doubt, Trump is a plague on America, the worst president of all time. He will stop at nothing to destroy everything America's built on. Sending love and prayers to the US. This appalling crime is likely to see Trump get a boost in the polls. Already the right of American politics is lauding him as some sort of hero. Amongst all the noise, I hope it doesn't distract from the real issues and challenges that face America. Now, I don't always agree with Mesa Gifford, although, man, he's put his life on the line for Ukraine. So, he's way more of a hero than I'll ever be. But he's absolutely right here that this will, in the same way that you won't be able to criticize Trump, actually the Republican Party and their policies get free reign now for the next however long. I wonder whether this plays as well into Biden's camp or the anti-Biden camp. So now you look at the Democrats and say, right, if you were the Democrat, if you were in charge of the Democratic Party, what would you do? Would you say, right, this is going to be much, much more difficult to beat Trump, and if they're claiming this is because of the rhetoric of Biden, then actually do we put even more pressure on Biden to step aside, or is Biden in a better position to counter this kind of narrative and to counter Trump going forward? Who would be in a better position given what we've learned in the last 12 hours or so? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I have a slight feeling that you would want to just start fresh almost. Say, okay, right, we're actually it's a good time to bring in a new candidate that doesn't have, you can't blame them for this like anti-Trump rhetoric as being, president, and therefore saying anything that you think has gone towards this eventual assassination attempt. This is a new face, even if it's Kamala Harris. Like there's something to be said about this being a fresh face in the race, and we're going to just reset. So you might get more grist to the mill for those opposing Biden, but there might be some arguments you could raise that actually keeping Biden would be sensible. Be interested to see what Alan Lichtman now says of his keys to the White House, because this is a big event that's changed everything and has probably changed his analysis. Anyway, Phillips O'Brien says, so 2 posts in one day. I've seen some people saying that the assassination attempt will help Trump get elected with a sympathy vote. I would agree that that is more likely the case than not. All I can say is that there is little evidence of that, and I tried to say why. Don't jump to conclusions. Much needs to be learned. I think there was some evidence of this, though, even if you go back to sort of, is it JFK? I don't know, but he's obviously thinking maybe not. Don't underrate the possibility of the GOP going insane over this during the convention. Of course, you've got the RNC, the Republican National Committee convention taking place this week. They are going to go nuts for this. Absolutely nuts. So Trump, the anointed one, Trump saved by God, will play into their base, maybe not to the undecideds. And that's the point I was trying to make earlier, that this will definitely whip up support from the base. Will it get the undecideds? But I think there's also another group that you might be forgetting here, which are those who are going to vote against Trump by maybe going third party, who are Republicans, dyed-in-the-wool Republicans, not prepared to vote for Biden, were not going to vote for Trump because of maybe his position on Ukraine, will now be energized to vote for Trump. So he is going to get more of his actual Republican base motivated to vote for him. So there are so many ways that you can interpret this. It's just, it's going to be very interesting. We're going to have to keep an eye on what happens, not just in the next few days, but in polling over time, and how much of an effect this will have on both parties and how they play this. I'll see if there's any further info. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I haven't already told you. Nothing new there. So let's try and keep the rhetoric on our own threads here, civil and respectful. Let's try and deal with the data, and if we are proposing theories, let's try and make sure that they're substantiated, they're based, that we aren't just going wing nut extremes and conspiracy theories and calling for revenge on X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth. Let's just calm it down, and let's hope that Trump himself is clearly fine. Luckily, only a graze to the ear there. But let's just hope that those who were injured in the event return to health as quickly as possible. And sad news about the death there. Terrible stuff happening. So it just time for calm, I guess, in a very febrile political scenario. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. Speak to you soon.